How bojo, bode wad me, Nottawaseppi yak in the bedagwis. How bode wad me and dog. Help, Iguyen. We are the Nottawaseppi Huron Band of the Potawatomi. We're located in the southern part of Michigan. And we're here to talk about the Mnomen. Mnomen translates to the good berry. And it's a staple. It's a good medicine to our life ways. Not only just the Potawatomi, but the Anishinaabe people, the Three Fires people, the Ottawa, the Potawatomi, the Ojibwe. You know, we all have these stories where the food grows on water, and they're talking about this beautiful medicine right here, Mnomen. And you might have heard some of the migration story of the Anishinaabe locating themselves west of the Appalachian Mountains, going to 7 sacred stops where the food grows on water. The Potawatomi have their own stories as well. But this Mnomen is a staple to our environment. It's a staple to our food sovereignty. It's a staple to our life way. It's a staple to our families. It's a staple to revitalizing who we are as people. And gives us that blood memory back. Gives us that chance to be in contact with Mother Earth, and that connection of Mother Earth, and that connection with other tribes.
Ujujayak, Ujuginwa, Wawa Smogi, Jakanishnakas, Shike and Dodem, Magadi Zibi, Weston Dochbia, Mine, Kevin Harris, culture specialist. What we're here doing today is harvest our wild rice, our Mnomen harvest. What you'll see today is our wild rice camp back on the res, what the process is, how we cultivate it, how we harvest it, and then the end product. So we have a whole community there with a community effort, and we're showing our kids, our youth, and other tribes the process of how we do it, revitalizing the old ways. You know, we're practicing that Anishinaabe Jishkewin, that Anishinaabe doings. The biggest thing that an elder told me was to be appreciative of just one grain. Bring it to your community, offer your tobacco first, bring it to your community, and show appreciation to that grain, that get that seed, because we want it to come back.
To cultivate is to nurture and help grow. And being stewards of the land and being Anishinaabe, we're actually helping Mnomen take its course. In April, after our spring ceremonies, which is the Anishinaabe New Year, we're feasting, we're doing all these good things in our community. We actually pray for the wild rice to come back in the late summer. And in May, you know, we get out on the water and we start to scout where this wild rice can be after we've threw seeds after the harvest. As community members or rice chiefs or rice wogamas, we look for new places where the rice can grow. We look at the old beds that grow back every year, and we try to make sure that there's no pollutants in the water. We try to make sure that it's protected through our community. We also have to protect it statewide. We also protect it spiritually. And in June, you start to see it at its floating stage. So when we get out and scout, we can actually see it, and then we get to see the other plants that come with that, which is the arrowheads. We see the birds that come back to it that loves the wild rice, which is a red-winged blackbird, and the geese. You know, they love that just as much as we do. And then a month later, you start to see it rise above that water, and it goes through its different stages. In July, you can see it, and it's swinging and swaying with the breeze and the waters, the current. We restore it by transplanting different plants in different areas, and it's a very beautiful sight when you see that water, that ZB, that river, and it's just sitting there beautiful. And then you see it's in its flowering stage, and then you see it's in the milk stage, and then you see when it actually pollinates with the other plant to create a seed. And then now we're getting prepared to harvest. We need our tools. So we create a tool called the knocking stick. And the process of harvesting wild rice is you get out there, you knock the rice into your canoe. And we use cedar because it's a light wood. You know, you don't want to damage the wild rice. You want to just slowly brush against it and knock it with your knocker. We go out in the woods and we find old wood that's in the swamps. We chop it up and we unlearn and relearn the process of our ancestors and how they did it. So we like to bring back the old ways, but also we revitalize the new ways, which basically is living traditional in a modern way. A lot of us use electrical tools. Some of us use draw knives, sawhorses. Some of us use sandpaper. Some of us already have our tools made from the last harvest. And in this process, we're making tools and also we're making material for fire starting. So when we have our sacred fires, that's some of our kindling that we use when we strike up. Raw Rice Camp has been going on for a couple years now, and it's a unique space. It's a beautiful space to kind of revitalize everything that our ancestors have done. The elders get together, our children get together, and we get to come out and have a good time and revitalize that blood memory. And not only as our Potawatomi community, but we have our Ojibwe community, our Odawa community, and sometimes we have invited guests. It wasn't until 1978 where we were allowed to practice our freedom of religion. So things like this is a humbling experience to understand who we are and what our people went through. Bring back the old ways, bring back our ceremonies, and that's what Mnomen is doing, is being a staple to our traditions, being a staple to our community, and it's teaching our people, not only just Anishinaabe people, but it's teaching all human beings to nurture this land, to take care of it in a beautiful way. After we got all our tools made, it's time to get on that water. It's time to float the creek. And it's a good space, you got your family and friends out there, and we're unstrapping those G-Mon, the canoe, and we're getting on that water, and we're giving them life jackets. Some people have never been on the water before, so you have to help them get in the water. I've had one fall in the water one time, and they said that was the best feeling that they ever had, because it's just that the feeling of water, being in nature, being human being, they never have a connection with the earth. And that connection to the earth is what the Mnomen has given us. It's given us that time, that self-care, just to feel the earth, feel the water, feel the elements, the natural elements that's always been in us. We are culture is us. Giving them this safe space as community and watching them smile when they get on that water and they're comfortable and confident, and I'm push pulling and they get to paddling and have that special moment, just us and Mother Earth, and they get to see these stalks swinging and swaying with the wind, and they see the black birds sitting over there eating the rice, and they're like, is that rice? Yeah, that's rice, let's go. And we get to knocking that rice down, and then we have this tool, what we call the Potawatomi stick, which is made out of red willow, tied into more of a curve to where it hooks the wild rice down to our chest level to where we can knock it. Our rice is very tall. It's unlike any other rice that you've seen, like lake rice. Lake rice is about 6 feet tall, maybe even 2 feet tall. Our rice is 12 feet tall. Our rice has to be cultivated and harvested in a totally different way. It grows in the mucky areas of the river, so you have to bring it down to your level. But the joy of just knocking that rice and you hearing that seed dropping in that G-Mon, you just see the kernels falling and you hear it. That sound makes you feel good because you know you're doing something right. You're doing something positive, and you're feeling everything that our ancestors felt. It takes a community. You can't go out there by yourself and prepare all this. It takes a community. There's a lot of work that has to be done before it gets on the table. So after we collect it, you have to collect and get everything out the boat. And then you put them in these burlap bags. You see the bugs, you see the worms, you see the spiders. All these beautiful plants and animals and insects are all a part of this nature, a part of this process. As you can see these little fleas jumping all over. And a lot of people don't realize how hard it is to actually collect wild rice and how much you honor this plant and this berry, because it takes a lot just to get a little piece. The lake rice is very plentiful when they go and collect. Our river rice is unique. It's a rare rice, and we get just enough to host our ceremonies. We get just enough to revitalize that good Mnomen, the good way of life, to exercise that Mnomen. And you start to collect this wild rice, and every grain means a million words. Every grain is a million smiles. Every grain is 1,000 years of our people. It creates a space for us to be who we are, revitalizing our culture, because it gives us life again. It gives us a reason, a purpose, a stewardship. And then the process after collecting it is the drying process, where we have to lay all our rice out on the tarp and let it dry, because you don't want it to mold. So what we have here is our notorious Nottawaseppi river rice. As you can see, it's a lot smaller than a lot of rice that you've seen on the market. There's a lot of lake rice, which is a little bit bigger than this. See the kernel here? It's about 3 times as big as this, but it's the same deal. This rice grows pretty much like a hybrid version of what lake rice is. And it's all through our canals down south, southern Michigan, in these areas where the Nottawaseppi are living today. It's always been here, but you can see how strong and how resilient this rice is to be determined to be in our digestive system as a food sovereignty staple. And it hybrided itself so that we can always eat it as long as the earth is still living, and we are stewards of the earth, and we can use this rice and give back to the earth. It will give back to us. So you can see the difference, way big difference than this river rice. Bigger, but not better. But you can see how it's 3 times bigger than our river rice. This is lake rice, grown in Minnesota, up there in on the west side of Wisconsin. Even over in Michigan, we have these secret lakes. This is our natural diet. This is why our ancestors did never have diabetes. This is why our ancestors had a life expectancy of over 50. And it's the way we took care of our body, what we put in our body. We ate from the earth. We're stewards of the earth. And this is called medicine because it heals the body. So by utilizing the Mother Earth's medicine, such as food, this is how we sustain our life longer. So to even get the next step going, after drying, we have to start a fire for the parching. So it's a good time for our young guys to get up in there and show us what they can do. Show us how they can start a fire. Allowing the young guys to have a space to be what they are naturally. Create a fire. Create warmth in their heart. It's a fun time. And by being a fire keeper in our community, being Potawatomi, meaning fire keepers or who tends a fire, we know the differences between a sacred fire and a cooking fire or a campfire. We've taught our people this. Your sacred fires are started in a sacred way. They're struck with flint and steel, tobacco. Use your medicines, your prayers in the ceremonial way. And that's done for our ceremonies. Some strike a sacred fire for these purposes, and some strike just a regular fire. This is a regular fire, but I've seen communities use their sacred fire for everything they do. But over here in our area, we don't use those fires for these processes. We have a sacred fire going somewhere else. So the fire that we're starting right now for the parching process is just a simple fire struck with ashes, coals, dry kindling, and community effort. But this particular fire is for parching, so we're adding more and more pieces of wood, more and more dry kindling, because what we want is a bed of coals. We want a hot coal, and you don't want to burn the rice, so it's just coals. It's not going to be a fire. We don't want a physical fire. We want a hot bed of coal for the parching process. So this is just a learning experience for our young ones. It's actually a time to teach our young ones and some of our young men in our community to learn how to survive in the woods. So the parching process actually begins after the coals lay down and we can get to cooking it. In the parching process, we have to constantly keep the rice moving because we don't want it to burn. It will turn into popcorn. It is a relative of corn, so it has those same characteristics of corn. But at this time, we got to keep it moving, keep it flowing, because before that process, it's more of a wet, bendy stage. So we're cooking the hull off of the seed itself. And this is another process from the river to the table. You have to keep your ear onto the kettle because you can hear it popping. And when you hear that pop, it's more of the popcorn stage coming. So you're actually burning the rice. So you have to pay attention and keep it flowing, keep it moving. And after you keep parching and applying heat to it, it turns into a crunchy, glassy stage. And that's when you kind of understand that it's done. And after that process, it's ready to be danced. It's immediately after the parching process, it's taken to the jigging pit. In the jigging pit is a process called dancing the rice. So in this process, you have to make a fresh pair of mocks that are knee-high. And reason being because the end of the hull is very pointy and it can be pressed into your skin and you'll never see the end of it, so it causes infections. So our people use these higher moccasins to protect their skin from the excess hull. And you want someone that's light on their toes so you don't break the rice. But at this process, what you're doing is basically dancing the hull off of the Mnomen itself, the rice seed. So you can see the comparison between the undanced and the danced. The undanced, you can see the hull still intact, but these are just simple processes. This is the traditional way of processing the rice. After the dancing process, the hull has detached itself from the seed. The next process is called winnowing. In this process, the tools that we make is called a winnowing basket, which is made out of birch bark. We call wigwas birch bark. The reason why we use birch bark is it's in our teachings, in our creation stories. So we take that good old sinew, and we stitch it. So birch bark and sinew. And some of us, we use red willow to border it, to give it strength. As you can see, the sinew has its own design wrapped around the edges of the red willow. It gives it this strength and this shape. So now we're ready to winnow, the winnowing process. So the process of dancing allows the hull to be separated from the seed, and by winnowing it, tossing the rice in the air just enough to where it don't spill over the basket, the hull gently floats away because it's so lightweight. And that's another beautiful process because you get to hear the elements, you get to hear the wind, you get to hear the natural setting of earth, you get to hear the rice land onto the wigwas. And then after the winnowing process is done and you look into your wigwas basket, you see this beautiful, beautiful Mnomen showing itself.
Bonjour, this is Nicole Keith, the Food Sovereignty Coordinator for the Nottawaseppi Huron Band of the Potawatomi. I have been in this position for the past 4 years and worked for our tribe the last 14 years, but a tribal member for a lifetime. Serving our tribe has always been instilled in me since I was born. For the first time in 2023, we were able to consume our wild rice that we harvested. We all have our differences and opinions of what our culture is, but in my opinion, since being knee-deep in revitalizing our traditional foodways, is that Mijum, our food, that is what makes us who we are. When we take that seat at the table and feast as a tribe, or in ceremony, our political views, the color of our skin goes out the door. Sharing food and being together is what defines us. That is our culture.
My name is Robert Williams. I'm a tribal member. I'm an elder. And I've been wild ricing since I was like about 44, 45. And I remember the first time I laid eyes on the wild rice seed. It was Amy Butcher from the environmental department first showed me that and the plant and told me what it was. So when I got into wild ricing, this person that showed me everything there is to know about the wild rice plant was Lee. He was a big impact on the things that I know about the wild rice plant. He told me the stages that it goes through, when to harvest it, when to transplant it. Lee was so knowledgeable of this plant, you know. He even showed me a plant, an arrowhead plant. He said, if you ever see this plant, you will see wild rice around this plant. Sure enough, when I'm out and I see this plant, there's wild rice by this plant. And I just like to give him all praises and thanks.
The proudest accomplishments with being the Food Sovereignty Coordinator is Nonoshe, which means maternal aunt in Potawatomi. And in our culture, in a lot of cultures, we learn from our elders and we learn from our aunties. Nonoshe includes NHBP tribal members who desire to revitalize, recreate, and reimagine our traditional indigenous foods. I owe much credit to the work I do to Sault Ste. Marie Chippewa tribal member Dr. Martin Reinhardt. Through his documented decolonization diet research, I had the light bulb go off and everything made sense. In his research, he made note that there are 295 treaties, including 734 articles between the American Indian tribes and the United States that are food related. From the broken promises of not having our treaties upheld, we are still paying the cost today. And I have high hope, but have high doubts that those treaty rights, our tribe, will still be fighting for long after I am gone.